Welcome. My name is Alan Barnard. I'm CEO of Barnard Research Labs. In the next 5 minutes or so, I'll do a quick introduction to Harmony, a new theory of constraints-based strategy and tactic tree expert system. In the past 20 years of helping public and private sector organizations as well as individuals set and achieve ambitious goals, we've identified 4 types of obstacles that need to be overcome for organizations and individuals to achieve successfully and sustainably these ambitious targets. The 4 types of obstacles relate to the design of a strategy and tactic tree, the validation with key stakeholders, getting their buy-in and consensus and contribution, and lastly, the planning and execution of a strategy and tactic tree. Starting with the design side, one of the most difficult challenges that we all face is to differentiate between all the parts that can be improved and the few that must be improved in order to make a significant improvement in the number of goal units that we achieved. To use the Harmony software to create a strategy and tactic tree, to identify all the necessary and sufficient changes that has to be achieved or implemented, as well as the sequence, simply start a new strategy and tactic tree, and immediately a box will appear. Right-clicking on it will give you an opportunity to identify the ambitious target that you want to achieve, for example, to achieve profitable growth within 3 years. In order to identify what else needs to change to achieve this target, we can then add necessary conditions or requirements using the add child functionality, in this case adding 3 necessary conditions or requirements for achieving this. And again, we can simply right click on each of these, give them titles, and go down even deeper to a 3rd or 4th or 5th level, building up all the cause and effect relationships that we believe, all the changes that we believe are necessary and sufficient to achieve the objective, and also indicating the sequence, typically from left to right, in which these have to be implemented. The second way of creating a strategy and tactic tree is to open up the Barnard strategy and tactic tree library. In this library, you'll find 5 generic strategy and tactic trees created by Dr. Ellie Goldratt that can be used by any manager within an organization to customize it for their specific environment. At the moment, there are strategy and tactic trees for consumer goods companies, for manufacturing companies, for project-based companies, for retailers, as well as equipment-based companies. In order to create a customized S&T tree, strategy and tactic tree, you simply click on the organization that you think most closely matches your environment, click on a tree and simply drop and drag either the whole tree or sections of the tree to the white canvas. Once you have it defined like this, you can start looking at all the titles of the changes that are being recommended at each of the levels to validate whether these make sense for your environment. You can also quickly move the sequence around. For example, simply dropping and dragging, you can move it within a layer and also within a level. You can make changes if you've made mistakes on the sequencing. You can also notice that there is the opportunity to define groupings. For example, if level 2 requires a competitive edge to be developed to achieve the target of profitable growth, then level 3 could be bold, capitalize, and bold as groupings that help you to define certain requirements to achieve this objective. In order to show the functionality of the second part of the functionality, I'm going to open up an existing tree. This relates to the validation of a strategy and tactic tree. Of course, there are a significant problem with resistance to change within organizations, and overcoming resistance to change don't only require that we get agreement on the titles of the changes that are needed, but the specific objectives, the what for of each of these changes, the how to of each of these changes, and also the whys. Why each change is necessary, why we claim the objective of each change is possible, why we claim the tactic is the best way of doing it. In order to capture all this information required to validate a strategy and tactic tree, simply double click on any of these, and you will notice 5 elements related to this change. The first being the necessary assumptions, the answer to the question, why is this specific change at this level needed? The strategy, or what is the specific objective of this specific change? The parallel assumptions, which generally try to answer 2 questions: under what conditions or why is this strategy or objective possible, and what specifically will make it difficult, that helped us to identify which is the best way of achieving it, which is the 4th element, the tactic. And then the last element is the sufficiency assumptions, or kind of a warning to the next level about the sufficiency of the change that is being planned. You'll also notice that some of the boxes have got a little paperclip on it. If you double click on it, you'll notice that one of the hyperlinked icons are active, and this shows a little additional graphical explanation that can be provided in order to get the buy-in or consensus or contribution for specific parts. And as it becomes clearer exactly what we mean, we can add additional video materials, PowerPoint presentations, or even Excel spreadsheets as hyperlinks to each of these parts. The third type of obstacle we face in achieving ambitious targets relate to the planning or the allocation of resources. There are typically 2 types of resources that need to be allocated to successfully implement a strategy for an organization. The first one are resources that are assigned to be accountable for the achievement of certain objectives, and the second type are resources responsible for implementing each of the tactics. With the managed resources, you can add all the internal or external resources that are required to implement this, and using the strategy management functionality and tactic management, by double clicking on one of these and opening up the strategy details, we can see that this resource has been assigned to be the person that owns the strategy, that is accountable for achieving this objective. We can also see that it provides a space for indicating how many days to achieve the strategy, and we can define a measurement unit, what the target is, a baseline, and an actual during the execution as we are making progress. We can also define warning levels of when we want certain warnings to be provided in terms of a yellow or red status, or even black status if it is overdue. In the same way, we can look at the tactic side, and in here we can again define who is responsible for implementing this tactic. If we go down to some of the lower levels where we've added more details, you'll notice that not only have we assigned a tactic manager responsible for implementing it, but we can also assign task participants, people that are involved in this task that should receive information about it. We can define the prerequisites of how it relates to previous tactics that has to be implemented. We can define a checklist of things that has to be done in order to implement this tactic, so we can track progress. We can also, during execution, we can monitor what it is waiting for and what the recovery plan is. For each tactic, we can indicate a status about during execution of not started, in progress, and complete. And we can also identify how many days we planned to take to implement the tactic, and during the execution, monitor the remaining duration. The obstacles that we face during execution is, of course, ensuring that all the resources are available when needed to prevent bad multitasking, local optimization, and loss of focus. We can view in the planning side also the project timeline of how we plan to execute this, and once we are ready to start with the implementation, move over to the execution functionality. As you can notice, immediately the strategy and tactic tree becomes a dashboard based on the warning levels that we've indicated and the status that we've updated. Certain of the changes are red, indicating that they require immediate attention from the steering committee for action. Some of it are green, meaning that they are progressing well within the expected timelines, and some are yellow, indicating that they require potentially attention in order to ensure that they still meet the objectives. Ones that are black or grey means that they are overdue, and the blue ones means that it has not yet been started. Some additional functionality is that you can set user preferences for different colors and settings. You can also archive the strategy and tactic tree for distribution. Under the validation part, there are also functionality to export a full strategy and tactic tree into Excel, and even a financial model that will help us calculate or determine the impact of changes that we have captured in our strategy and tactic tree. For example, if we've developed a decisive competitive edge, which we believe will provide us with the ability to charge a premium, we can see what the impact will be of a 10% average increase in the selling price of our products or services. And as you can see, it shows that it will result in a 200% increase in net profit. Each of these change blocks, when you right click on them, you can also indicate the specific financial impact on sales, variable cost, operating expenses, and investment. A low, a likely, and a high estimate. I hope that's given you a quick overview, sufficient that you can start using it immediately. There are free versions of Harmony available at the moment, a free version that you can view any strategy and tactic tree that has been created with Harmony. There's a developer version that provides functionality to design and validate strategy and tactic tree, and an implementer version for the planning and execution of a strategy and tactic tree. If you require any additional information, you are welcome to visit goldredresearchlabs.com or contact me directly at alan@goldred.co.za.